In one of my classes, a student asked me a question to do with directors of a family company in Australia. So big shout out to Josh there if you're listening. But before we go any further today, just remember that we're here for educational purposes only. Always get legal advice from a professional after discussing your full family situation. So generally speaking, here are the main issues. So here's Josh's story. He said, my mum and dad, they're starting a business. I said, that's great. It's a really exciting time. So his parents wanted to know who should be the directors. Fantastic. So why do we in fact have a director? A small family company needs a director to make decisions and run the business operation. There's a lot of responsibility here, and that comes with risk. Why is there risk? Well, the limited liability applies to a company, not to a director. So there are certain circumstances where the risk will pass from the company to a director. Okay, so there's an element of risk. We need to be careful. Now let's say I don't want to be a director. I don't want to take on the risk. What happens then? Well, there's good news. You can still be involved in the family business. You could potentially be an employee and work for the family business like anybody else, being paid an arm's length or market wage. Or maybe you won't be part of the business, you won't work for the business, and you'll just be a shareholder of the family company. So where are we? We have mum and we have dad. They've started a new family company, a proprietary limited company in Australia. The company is selling imported goods to the public in Australia, and Josh, my student, he wants to know, who will the directors be? Now we've got a few choices here. It could possibly be mum, it could possibly be dad, or maybe we will have them, mum and dad, both as directors. So in a small family company, only one director is required. I'll say it again. In a small family company, only one director is required. So that's why we have the three options. Now, in my story, Dad has suggested that he is a director. Dad wants to be the director, that's fine. That's what Josh told me. And Mum is feeling a little bit left out. She's offended. But hang on a minute, maybe there's a good reason for this. There could be a reason why Dad should be the only director. So when you have a trading company, the directors are usually at risk. Now the shareholders aren't. Well, they're usually not. There are exceptions. We'll talk about that soon. So what does at risk mean? Remember, we used this word before. We said the directors are at risk. What does that mean? Well, it means if something goes wrong and the company is sued, the director or the directors can lose their assets. They could lose everything. So that's not a good thing. So I have a question for you. Let's say if Mum owned the house and she owns the family car, the family home, and Dad has nothing in his name, who should the director be? Who do you think? I'm going to say Dad. Why? If something goes wrong, Mum is not a director. She will keep the family home, she's going to keep the family car, and she will keep all the assets in her name. So in this example, we want Dad to be a director, and we want Mum to be as far away from the decision making of the company as possible. It is important that Mum not be part of the decision making process in the business. If she is, she may be held to be a shadow director. So the answer to the question, who should be a director? Well, in a perfect world, Mum might own the family home and Dad might run the business. And if possible, Dad has little or no assets. Mum can be an employee, she can be a shareholder, but we don't want Mum or the person with the assets, the majority of the assets, to be a director or a shadow director. Why? We don't want the assets to be at risk. Now, if Mum and Dad own the house 50-50, we still only want one director. Why? It's better to keep 50% of the home safe than to lose 100% of the home. So one last thing. Sometimes a shareholder can be at risk. Remember I said that? I bet you're thinking, wow, how can that happen? Well, this would happen if Mum gives a personal guarantee to a bank or to another business, or if something called an excessive dividend is paid out. Now we'll talk more about this in another session. Once again, everyone, you should always seek legal or professional advice before making a decision. And if you'd like to ask us an educational question, please feel free to contact us on our Facebook page.